Well, good evening. Welcome to Beth Israel, the West Temple on Triscuit Road in Cleveland, Ohio. Welcome back to another edition of our town hall. Tonight we have mother and daughter, public officials, elected officials, to talk about what lured them into their profession, what keeps them going, how they deal with the public, how they have their private time, how do they find time to have their private time, their families, and of course, how we deal with COVID. Tonight, we talk to public officials about how they act and how they perform and what they do on behalf of those who have elected them to office. We center on two communities adjacent to each other with almost the same name. But because their names are so different, there's tremendous differences in how they operate. We have the Olmsted Falls School Board and school board member Holly Neumann with us. And we also have the Olmsted Township Trustee, Holly's mom, Jeanene Kress, with us. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks for having us.
So the first question is a broad question, and that is, what was the lure of public office to both of you? Mom, you get to go first. What was your thinking about, I am going to run for public office?
Well, it's an interesting question, Peter, and actually, I had been a school board member myself in the 80s and early 90s. So I had a bit of public service before, about 12 years service. And then in 2011, I guess is when I ran, the gentleman who was the incumbent was not very effective. Not a stellar board member, was running unopposed, and I thought, I think I can do it. So I did, and I won.
And Holly?
Well, obviously, I had a good example with my mom serving on the school board and growing up and seeing that example. But when I got married, David and I married in our mid-30s, so we were older, and we both agreed when we got married that now was the time for it not to be about us, but for it to be about community. We already had our fun, and the spotlight was on us, in our 20s and in our early 30s. Now we needed to make it more than just us, but more about community. And so this was a way to serve.
And is a school board member a stepping stone? Do you think about it being a stepping stone?
Oh, sure, yeah.
To other office?
It is a good it's a great stepping. There's an example right there. Yes, it's a good stepping stone.
Yeah.
And yes, I in my second elected term on school board right now, and I'm in my mid-50s, so I have time to either run for a third term, and that would see my children out of the district, and then maybe look to something more citywide or something like that.
So, Mrs. Kress, tell us how many trustees the township has.
I'll give you a little bit on us. There are 3 trustees and 1 fiscal officer. We're elected for 4-year terms. The interesting thing, and I can go a little further on this, I don't know if the question's coming up, but township form of government is the oldest form of government in Ohio. There are over 1,300 townships and only about 700 cities. We are Olmsted Township is the 80th largest township in Ohio. We have 16,000 residents, and the largest township is outside of Cincinnati. They have over 60,000 residents. It's a big pool here. There are townships I always see that have more cows than people. But it is the oldest form, and it is there are no term limits. So there are some trustees who've served for over 30 years. I'm
So-
in my second term.
Second term.
So
Second term.
16,000 people, how can you describe how big of a geographic area you have?
Our geographic area is 10 square miles. And actually, we're larger than just about any West Side community. Take out North Olmsted and Westlake, we are larger than any of the others. Equal in size to Berea, twice as big as Olmsted Falls. 10 square miles is a nice size. There are some that are 30 square miles.
So Olmsted Falls is a city,
Yes, it is.
and you guys are a township.
Correct.
Is there some reason why there isn't just one big blank Olmsted?
Well, actually, if you look back, Olmsted Township is the original, the only original remaining part of that original township tract that was part of Aaron Olmsted's holding from the Connecticut Western Reserve. And so at the time, it also encompassed North Olmsted and Olmsted Falls and the old part of the old village of Westview that had merged in with recently, well, in the last 30 years, with Olmsted Falls. So what you have is this remaining 10 square miles, 16,000 people. It takes a vote of the people to merge. And so merger has been on the ballot 4 times and has never passed.
Wow.
It is a, it has to be the will of the people. We're not large enough to incorporate incorporation outside of, there's several processes that you have to go through, but the fastest way is to get to 25,000 residents. Then it's easy to incorporate. That may be down the line. We have a lot of land, a lot of development.
So is there an advantage or a series of disadvantages to not being a city?
The cities are governed by a charter. If you're in Lakewood or North Olmsted or Berea or any city, they have a charter. Cleveland has a charter. Townships.
That's a constitution.
That's right. That is their operating mechanism. The townships are governed by the Ohio Revised Code, and the Ohio Revised Code is the operating document for townships. The greatest advantage to a township resident is there's no income tax.
Uh-huh.
We are funded specifically and almost 99% on property taxes. The greatest advantage governing is that there are fewer hoops to go through. Most city charters require 3 readings. There's a council mayor form of government or a council manager, city manager kind of. It's a different dynamic. For townships, the 3 trustees act as legislative and executive.
And do you still live in the home that you raised your children in?
I do.
And Holly,
Maybe I shouldn't, but I do.
and how far away are you, Holly?
Oh, so I live in Olmsted Falls, not Olmsted Township. Actually, with the way that the township and the falls, all those 10 square miles, across the street from my home is the township.
Oh, my
But
gosh.
so the south side of the street is the falls, the north side is the township. But I live 2 miles away from the house that I grew up in.
And do all of your siblings live in the general area as well?
Yes. The furthest outlier lives in North Royalton.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
But the rest of us live, and one in Strongsville, but the rest of us close.
Do you know whether the Falls has more people or less people than the township?
Significantly, they have what, maybe
About-
9,000 residents? Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So the city has less residents than
Yes.
the township?
Yes,
Yes,
4
yes.
square miles and 9,000 residents.
Yes,
Oh, my gosh.
yes.
Wow.
It's quite a, if you look back historically, Olmsted Falls was the town. That's where the barber shop, the church, the little grocery store, the drugstore, things like that. Olmsted Township was the farm. So that was farmland. It was known as a greenhouse area. So when
see.
you have a greenhouse area like that, you have a lot of acreage. We still have some greenhouses in the area. So it was the country, and Olmsted Falls was the town.
Yeah.
And if my geography's right, Olmsted Township is adjacent to North Ridgeville, Lorraine County.
Correct. Correct.
So if you're a school board member, how long is your term?
So school board members is also a 4-year term, and there are 5 in the state of Ohio. A school board is comprised of 5 board members that are elected to a 4-year term.
So let's go back to the question, I think maybe from the beginning. Start with you, Jeanene. When you thought about getting back into government, not just as a school board member, but being one of the 3 head honchos, did you talk to the 5 kids?
Oh, I don't think so.
No,
You didn't? You didn't?
Nope.
no, I don't
Nope,
think so.
just talk to Bob.
I think, yeah, you just talk to Dad.
And this is the wonderful thing about my husband of blessed memory.
A blessed memory.
If I said, let's do it, or you think it's a good idea, it was always just go for it. And so, as I say, the incumbent wasn't doing the best job. And I hate to say this because it sounds, but he was about my age at the time, and I thought for sure I could lick him. Here I am now, and I'm thinking, you know,
Yeah.
it takes a lot to be fresh. You want to be fresh, but government needs young people like Holly who have a passion for their community. And that's what drives your community, is this young, interested, dynamic, connected person that comes in and says, I'm willing to take up the mantle and take the next way. And that's the exciting part of it.
So Holly,
It is important, though, however, to have some, some senior, member on your team, right, that knows how to do it. It's good to have a mix.
It
so
is.
Holly, when you decided or thought about,
Yeah.
as you mentioned before, it's time for us to do some public service.
Right.
Did you talk with your mother?
I think I did. I
we did.
said I think I'm going to run, and yes.
And
So
did
it
you
was-
find that saying you used to be Holly Kress and now you're Holly Neumann, how do you keep your name when your name isn't Kress? When you're
Right.
running for the job that your mom used to
Right,
have.
yeah.
How did that all work?
So, right. So I thought about, I was like, well, I wonder if I can get elected. Like if I run under Holly Neumann, will people know? Because there's a lot of people still in both communities of Olmsted Falls and Olmsted Township that know our family. And I'm like, they might not know me if I run under Holly Neumann, but I should not run under Holly Kress. That's not my name. So I ran under Holly Neumann and I won.
And this is a question for both of you. Does a school board member run with a political party affiliation?
No, school board is not partisan.
And how about a trustee at the
No.
township? No.
No.
So both
It's
of you run
nonpartisan.
nonpartisan elections.
Correct. Correct.
Yes.
And does that make it easier to run? Or is that something that you wish you had the advantage of a declaration of party?
I've never found it to be an advantage
Yeah.
or disadvantage. To be honest with you, I think people labels are kind of a little scary to people now, and so I think overall, I never felt that the advantage would be to be endorsed by the Democratic Party would be beneficial. But I don't think it would be a detriment. But I could say, since I have been in public office, I've probably been asked my affiliation less than a half a dozen times.
And that was my next question. Do people ask?
I feel like it kind of, for my experience, it depends on when you when you have to run for reelection or when you run to get elected. So I've run 2 campaigns to get elected. Once when I was first elected and then a reelection campaign. And both times I had people running against me. I was never I never ran unopposed. And so the people that I was running against were, even though it's a nonpartisan position, whoever runs, if they want to make it partisan, that's up to them. And if they want to say what party they, are affiliated with, it's up to them. And so I did have people do that. I never engaged in that, but, I think maybe once I was asked.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting word in our vernacular that says when you want to be in public office, you have to run for it. R-U-N.
Yes.
First of all, it usually isn't a marathon. It is not a race. It's a marathon.
Right, yes.
Usually it can be from even March all the way to November if you have a primary. So it's an interesting word that you want to run for office, you have to run for office.
Yes.
So Jeanene, when you thought about running for office, does that mean the old-fashioned you knock on every door and say hi?
Well,
let's start with your first campaign.
She didn't ask us if she was going to run for trustee, but she did say, you will be helping me in the campaign. So we all helped in the campaign.
Of course, well, you weren't going to say no to mom.
And likewise, they helped me with my campaign.
Yeah.
the first time.
And I'll say this, I think the run is quite a bit different now than it was when I first was on school board in the 80s. Signs, we did signs, a lot of it, I did go door to door.
We did in the 80s.
We did a lot of that kind of thing. We're finding now that signs are not nearly as effective. However, the personal touch is critical. And so the last time I've been elected for my 3rd term as a trustee. This last time and the time before, I never had a sign up, but I sent out almost 500 notes. And it just said, I'm running for office. I hope you'll consider me. And please tell your neighbors. And
Well, you ran unopposed the second time.
the second time, I did have opposition at the start.
So,
Then he withdrew.
Oh,
so,
that's right.
so this is not where you have a direct mailing and you get those pieces of paper.
Nope.
We're inundated with those in October. This was a note,
Yes.
a handwritten note.
I wrote many of them, and then some
Wow.
of them I had printed off. I printed them myself, and then I just signed them and put my note on them. I've known many of these people for 55 years. They still live in their homes. Their kids went to school with my kids. And so many of them, or I knew the kids who moved back to the area. So it was, I'm running and I'd like you to consider me. This last time I had no opposition, but I've had opposition every time I've run except this last time.
And Holly, how about you? How do you run a campaign the first time with a different last name to the school board?
So I did not send out 500 personal notes. Well, I do know a lot of people in the community that way. I ran a different campaign, and again, I think you run your campaign based on what your opposition is doing, right? So the first time I ran, there was a gentleman that was running against me that he must have ordered 1,000 signs. It was insane, and so we just then did that, and we did go door to door with a door hanger and stuff. The second time I ran, I did not do as many signs, and it was more reaching out personally to different organizations in the community that I knew, that I was involved, you know. When you're a so you know, I'm on school board. I just don't do school board stuff. You know, I do Chamber of Commerce and other things within the school. And you reach out, you know people. So again, it's what Jeanene said. It's really personal reaching out.
And I will not be naive enough to think that there isn't somebody who would think that person ran a dirty campaign, that person ran a negative campaign, that person didn't tell the truth, that person's literature wasn't right. Do either of you or both of you face that in your elections?
I think the most important thing, I did not find very much negative campaigning. It's on the local level. It's hard for people to, I mean, they know people, so it's not like they can spot a phony. But I think the most important thing when you campaign is that you run your own campaign. You don't really care what other people are doing. You run your campaign and you present your case, your story. And that seems to be, authenticity is the most important thing you do when you campaign.
Yeah.
Who am I? What do I stand for? And that's it.
Right.
And when you are an incumbent, you have an advantage because you can say, as part of the team, this is what we did.
Mm-hmm.
Not I. Nothing gets done by I. No, absolutely nothing. But when you are an incumbent, you can say, very fortunately, as part of this team, we were able to accomplish these kinds of things.
Right.
And Holly?
Right. I mean, very similar to what Jeanene said. The second time I ran, I ran. There was a gentleman that was running that was very opposed to the school and some curriculum that he felt the school was doing, and that was a challenge. Just because he was very vocal and utilized social media a lot to gain some support. Very similar to kind of what we're seeing now in our democracy, mistruths and misinformation. And so some of that I addressed, but most I would just then redirect the conversation to, this is what we have done, and state more facts.
So all of us watching, all of us in our lives, we turn the TV on in November and we watch the numbers come in and watch the numbers come in and oh my gosh, my candidate won or my candidate lost. And if you've lived long enough, you've had both. You've had sadness and you've had extreme, we won, we did it. Congressman, senator, doesn't matter. How is it being a candidate for office, watching the numbers come in? Are you just going stir crazy, waiting for some results? How is that night for the both of you? You've both gone through it a couple times.
Well, the first time it was super exciting. My father had just passed away a couple months prior, and I was hopeful that he could see me win. But it was thrilling for sure. And now we have absentee ballots, so those come in first, and you get see the numbers, and it's very fun. The second time, maybe not as, it was a little more anticlimactic, I think.
And how about you, Jeanene?
Well, I am an old-fashioned person. So as soon as the polls close, I force the people around me to go and with a flashlight, go and see the posted numbers that are on the doors, because I like to see it. I just love to see it. And that's from my mom and dad. Well, especially my mother was very, very political in Cleveland. She was a precinct committee woman, and she worked for the county, and it was a big deal. I was passing out ballots, literature when I was 6, 7 years old. We were going door to door, dropping
see.
stuff off. So
Yeah.
I love to see those numbers up there. And so I bring in everything and we look over everything, candidates, issues. I think the process in our democracy is awe-inspiring, and I love to be part of it. I think it's fantastic, and
Yeah.
I'm proud to be a part of it.
Yep.
So let's segue into your activities in your elected office. I know from my years and many, many years in cities, government, when one person gets elected, it means nothing if you don't have enough friends to be in the majority. If you got a 7-person council, you must have 4 friends, 3 friends. If you don't have 3 friends, none of your work is going to get passed.
Right.
So I know that's why there's always an odd number. So somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. I understand there's 3 trustees, so obviously you need 2 to make anything happen. Is that fair?
Right.
And there's 5 school board members. There has to be 3 that say, okay, we're on board. So let's start with the school board. How often do you meet on regular meetings?
Sure. We have one public, well, all of our meetings are public. Our regular meeting is once a month, and then we have a work session once a month. So we meet every 2 weeks.
And is there a school board building?
No, we meet, we do have a central office, but it's too small and could not accommodate the board and the public. So we meet in our high school at a larger room in the belly of the building.
So is that make it more difficult or easy that you're not in a building all by yourself? You have to go over to the school to conduct your public affairs?
No, it's fine. No, it doesn't matter where we're conducting our meet. We used to travel to all 5 of the school buildings, and every month be at a different building. But then we agreed that it's just better for the public to know that we're at this location every month on this 3rd Thursday. Every month they know where to find us, to make it more accessible for people to participate in our public meetings.
So 2 meetings, are they both in the evening?
Yeah, we start at 7 o'clock.
And let's talk about pre-COVID. How many people would regularly attend the work session and how many would attend the other session?
Right. So sadly, and unfortunately, not very many people. The past 16 months have been very unusual, and aside from COVID, we had some financial instability, which we are still experiencing in our district. So we had some letting go of staff to have a healthier financial picture, and that brought out a lot of crowds. So in the past year, we had 150, 200 people at some of our meetings. We usually don't get anybody that comes to our work sessions. That's kind of the nitty-gritty work that's really actually the fun part, right? Because then you're really seeing how the work gets done, and more people should attend work sessions. But our board meetings, the last 12 to 16 months, we've had an enormous amount of people attend.
And Jeanene, how frequently do you meet for public purposes?
In Olmsted Township, we meet twice a month, the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of every month. The meetings are, of course, public meetings, but every meeting, whether it's a work session, anything, it's all placed on the township public calendar. Every meeting is a public meeting, and people are welcome to come. Generally, we've had 3 trustworthy, solid citizens who've come every single meeting, and I think we're just the entertainment for the evening for these 3 guys. During this COVID, we've used a virtual platform, and we've had, I think the highest we ever got was 35. Mostly we'll get somewhere around 10 or 12 people.
So let's talk about township government for a minute. Is there a separate police department for the township?
Yes, we're full service. We have a police department, a fire department, a service department which handles our roads and any part of that, our buildings, our facilities, and then we have a building department that manages zoning and ensures that the look of the township reflects the community standards and also reflects the Ohio guidelines and all of the codes that are required.
And are there schools in your community?
Every school except one is in Olmsted Township.
Oh
Right.
my gosh.
So we have 5 school buildings in our district. You know, and our school district is comprised of students from Olmsted Township, Olmsted Falls, as well as some smaller, very small portions of Columbia Station, Berea, and North Olmsted. So
Oh.
4 of our buildings are in Olmsted Township, and 1 building is in Olmsted Falls.
So I don't know the answer. Sometimes the lawyer thing, don't ask the question if you don't know the answer. Does the school board have a police force?
No. We have an SRO officer, a student resource officer, that is, mostly at the high school and the middle school. And that is a township officer that is dedicated to the school. To mostly work with the students and in that regard. But we don't have-
So anytime there's any kind of a threat, whatever it is, several years ago there was a kind of unfortunately, a bomb kind of a threat, that copycat thing when it happened
Yeah.
elsewhere. So it was Olmsted Township Police that worked with administration there to resolve that issue. So that's because the buildings are there.
We have the school district has a phenomenal relationship with the township police as well as the falls.
So most public officials are somewhat reticent to admit that their job is not just 2 meetings a month. It can be overwhelming at times, I'm sure, for both of you. Again, not even considering COVID and everything else that's gone on these last 9-10 months. Is it possible to calculate how much time you give to your communities on a weekly or monthly basis? Or is it just overwhelming and can't even be counted?
For Jeanene, I mean, again, we are, family, so we see, how much we each work and what we're working on. I can say Jeanene definitely works an enormous amount of time for Olmsted Township. Not that I don't work an enormous amount of time at school board. We have more members on our board, so there's more distribution of the work. And we have a superintendent and a CFO. So our superintendent is like our CEO. We hire a superintendent to manage what happens at the school district. And we have a treasurer, CFO, who manages all the finances. And so then those are the only 2 people that report directly to the board. And then everybody else in the organization reports to those people, to those 2 top people. So while we are responsible as board members for the entire district, certainly there is an organizational chart in place that there are people that,
Right.
work with us.
And Jeanene, do you, I mean, you probably don't want to admit it, I know.
Oh, well.
Tell us how much you think you put in.
Oh, my goodness. Sometimes it's a wax and wane kind of a thing.
Yeah, of course.
Recently, well, first of all, we also have an organizational structure, but we're small. We're a very lean form of government. And so when you have that, and we're growing, but we haven't figured out how to grow exactly enough people to do everything. So a lot of times I've done things like write grants and get involved in some community projects that maybe someone else in a larger organization would have had someone do that. So I would say overall, I would say somewhere between 20 and 25 hours a week, I would say I put in.
That is incorrect.
Some of that is
That's incorrect.
some of that is answering phone calls and talking to people. Some of it is handling projects. Some of it is, a little bit of fun stuff. And I love my work. And, the fact that I don't have a family to raise makes it a joy for me. I mean, my friends all envy me because I have a purpose, and I have a young group of young women who work in our offices who are just so very, very nice to me. So for me, it is a joy to serve my community, and I'm at a different point in my life.
Do any of the 3 trustees have a full-time job?
Yes, 2 of them. Well, one of them has a pretty substantial part-time job, and one has a full-time job.
And how about the school board members?
Yes. One school board member is an attorney, and another one has her doctorate and is a head of a department at Cleveland State. Another one is an adjunct professor at Akron. And then the other board member has a full-time job with the county, at the county level.
What are the, I don't know how many there are, so I'll just say, what are the current most high priority challenges that a township faces and that a school board faces? Not necessarily today, exactly today, but, and I don't know whether it has to be a COVID-related answer or not. Maybe you can give a non-COVID answer. What is the biggest challenge facing your community, Jeanene?
Well, I would say COVID has this past year, 2020, has been overriding because the goal was to remain safe, allow our staff to do their job and serve our community. That was very high priority. We received CARES money, both federal and county money. Spending that money in the wisest way to ensure that we were maximizing its use was a very big deal. Overall, overreaching. In a growing community, you have issues that relate to infrastructure, which are huge. This is not just in Olmsted Township. Every community is facing this. How do you handle issues of sewers, water provision, stormwater? Where overall the west side of Cleveland is those suburbs are very flat overall, and so you're looking at a lot of stormwater remediation. You want to ensure the quality of life that people have there. Some of those are fairly seem like they're small items, but we don't have a lot of sidewalks. So sidewalks, trails, those have been spotlighted during this COVID crisis. People need to be outdoors and move away from their homes. I would say our community is looking at more recreational facilities for young families. How do we continue to tap into the growing community, their needs, and then translate that into how do we use those scarce resources, tax dollars, to provide the maximum benefit to the most number of people?
Yes. And Holly, how about the school board? What are the challenges that are right in front of you that you guys are facing at the current time?
Right. So we've been facing this for a while now, and it's not going away. Fair school funding, hands down. It's a ginormous problem in the state of Ohio. It's been ruled unconstitutional at the state on how they fund public schools and charter schools and private schools. And we were almost there. It almost got to the Senate this past December, just a month ago. And then the Senate said, no, we're not going to do this. And so now we're back to square one, and there's been a lot of work, bipartisan work at the state level between two gentlemen, Cupp and Patterson, and they had some good ideas on how to make school funding more fair for every district. And it had House support, but it did not have Senate support. And so for a community like Olmsted, for a school district like Olmsted Falls, there's not a lot of industry or commercial activity in either of the communities. And so we rely on the homeowner and their taxes to fund our district. 65% of our funding comes from the homeowner. So anytime we need more money, we have to go to the homeowner. We don't get it from the state.
It's a bond issue.
No, that would be, well, it depends. If you're building, if you're doing infrastructure and facilities, it's a bond issue. If you need operating money to pay your staff, that's an operating levy. You can do a permanent improvement levy, so you can maintain your facilities.
Right.
So there's different types of levies that you can pass. We did just pass a levy in the spring of 2020, an 8.9 mil operating levy to pay our staff. And it was the second largest levy that our community passed in 30 years, and we were thrilled. May came, and the governor sliced every school budget by 5%. We lost over $1 million, which is a lot of money for us.
So let's change subject matter for a minute. Sometimes public officials need to meet in private. Not everything is in the public scope. There's what's called an executive session of a city council.
Right.
That is the way the law director can say, we need to discuss labor, employment, lawsuits. Is there, for the both of you, how do you discuss, what is a public meeting, and can you have a private meeting?
Yeah.
You cannot have a private meeting. You can meet in executive session, and the reasons for executive session are very, very specific.
Yes, they are.
So when you go into executive session, you must say executive session for personnel, executive session for legal action, executive session for land purchase, something like that. You can't just, it can't be two or three things that we just think we need to talk out. This is why with the three-member board, two people talking together is a violation of the Sunshine Law.
Yes.
So we, 3 years ago, hired a township administrator. She is our COO. She's our chief operating officer. And so anything that is discussed is channeled through her. I talk with her. She passes it on to the other two. And this is pretty much the way you stay legal. I don't know how other people do it, but that's the best way to do it, is to get that kind of thing going.
And how about you, Holly? Can you
Yes.
have a private meeting?
No, we as well. So school boards in Ohio are governed just like townships by Ohio Revised Code. And so we too can go into executive session for the similar things that Jeanene talked about. There are like 5. I'm
Right.
board president, so I lead the meeting, so I know how, and yes, you have to state why you're going. You know, the most important thing I think about serving with other board members and other trustees is, the most important thing is that you all have common goals for what you'd like to achieve for your entity in that year, or we have a strategic plan at the school board, And we govern ourselves not only just by Ohio Revised Code, but what does our strategic plan say? And everything we do relates back to the strategic plan. So when you become a board member, we recently just had to appoint one of our senior board members resigned, and we just appointed a new board member. When you come on our board, you already know these are our goals. These are our common goals.
Right.
And you work to maintain those commonalities, so then you can get things done together.
Yes.
Yes, it's unfortunate that sometimes on boards that someone goes rogue and wants a different agenda. But the goal is to all agree on what the common goals are for what you'd like to get done, and then it's easier to do the work.
So in your school district, are your schools overflowing with kids? Too many?
No,
Again,
no,
we're
no,
talking
no.
pre-COVID.
Yeah, right, yeah. No. We're right sized for our facilities. We have about 3,700 students, and we could accommodate a few more. So the township does have the most land available in Cuyahoga County, so they will grow, and they are growing, and we know that, and we have a close relationship with them to keep tabs on that. So we are able to assume a healthy amount of growth, just not too much. Too much, then we might have to make some adjustments. But a good amount to start, we could accommodate.
So let's change the subject again. Talk about budgets. February, January is always the budget month for most municipalities, cities. Is this budget month as well for the township?
We actually have to submit to the county a temporary budget. We did that already. And then the final budget is due in March. So we'll keep refining that budget. We have an $11 million budget, which is a small budget when you look at other entities around. So our goal is always to we treat each department as a unit. So we get all costs attended to that right there, from everything from salaries and anything to a personnel all the way down to capital. And so that's how we do that. We've already talked about it, so we're just about done. We have a couple of things to.
What can you define as being the biggest part of the budget, expenditure-wise?
Biggest thing is we're in service business. Salaries, healthcare benefits.
Pension contributions.
This is where it is. As I say many times, we don't make toothbrushes.
Yeah.
We are a service industry. We are people serving people, and so that's where your money goes.
So
I think, Peter, I'm going to say somewhere between 79% and 81% of our budget is salaries,
Wow.
benefits. That's very typical. It's the same way at schools.
It's the same at the school.
is your biggest expenditure on personnel?
Absolutely. We're about 80%. Our budget is larger than the township. Our budget is about $50 million. And we submit budgetary forecasting information on our finances. We are required to submit twice a year to the state.
Right.
So when you think about, let's just hope we get to the fall, and we've all had our 2 vaccination shots, and we have some level of normalcy. How are the kids going to be, having had a year and basically a half, March of 2020 to the fall of 2021 is 18 months. Do you anticipate, or can you anticipate how it's going to be when school begins in the fall?
In terms of
Just
what?
the kids coming back, and are your kids in school now?
No, we're in a hybrid. We're in a
Okay.
hybrid
I
mode.
guess I should have asked that.
So
I'm sorry.
yeah. So half of our student population goes 2 days a week. The other, A through L goes then, and then M through Z goes the other 2 days, and then we have one day that's all virtual. So,
So was the decision to do that a school board decision or a superintendent decision or some juggling of both?
Right. So it's a very collaborative decision between the school board, the superintendent, the principals, our assistant superintendent, our director of human resources, the leadership of our labor unions. So our superintendent has networks with the county school board at the education center, and then through them they have conversations with the county board of health. And so it's not made by one person or one entity. It is a collaboration among very many people.
And how about decision making on something like COVID at your level, Jeanene?
It's collaborative. I mean, you just simply cannot, nobody works in a vacuum, one person making all these decisions. We received almost $800,000 worth of funds, federal funds and county funds. That decision on how to spend that money was very, very collaborative. We talked about it. We spoke with our department heads, our chiefs, our service director, these kinds of things. What do you need most? How can we serve you? Some money we knew had to go into salaries for people who contracted COVID. But in the process, it was collaboration, discussion. What serves our people? What serves our community best? And that's what we did.
So let's conclude with some family questions.
Sure.
And Holly can't wait for the one from Mally's, but we got a couple ahead of it. So tell me, Jeanine, have your children come to watch you in live in person?
Yeah, but they're always asking. They don't have to watch me. They know what's going on.
Yeah.
We talk a little bit about it, and they're so supportive. So a couple of my grandkids have been there to see me in action.
And have you ever seen Holly in action at a school board
I've
meeting?
been to school board meetings.
You
Sure.
go to them.
I've been
Oh,
not
like-
often, just a couple times.
Yeah.
And usually she likes me not to go.
Yeah, I prefer.
Is that right, Mrs. Newman?
Yes, I would prefer it.
Because,
She always has something to say.
well,
No, it's fine. No, sometimes the meetings are boring for both of us, right?
Oh, yes.
So she does her meeting. She does. You do you. I'll do me, and that's good.
And do your children come to see you at the school board meeting ever?
They came. They came when the first time I was elected and I got sworn in, and they came last year when I was sworn in as president of the board. This is my second year as president of the board.
Pretty
So
cool
they
having
came.
the kids around, isn't it?
Yeah, so that was yeah, but no, they don't come.
How many grandchildren do you have, Jeanine?
9.
And
Every one of them a treasure and a joy and a blessing.
yeah, I've had the honor of meeting, I think, all of them, and of course, I know your children as well. Tell us something about Holly that most people wouldn't know.
Oh,
Besides that she plays the
I
oboe.
forgot about that question.
I know something about Holly that I don't think anybody knows.
Go ahead.
And that is her nickname from her father,
Oh, yeah.
Buzz.
Sauce.
So-
And long story, but that's what it is. It's
Yeah.
sauce.
Thought. And Holly, is there something you know about your mom that maybe people don't know?
Oh God, I forgot about that.
Yeah, well, then I'll go on another one and come back. How's
Yeah,
that?
maybe I have to think about that.
So I know that when the Newmans order Chinese, David probably puts the order in. But tell us what you order when you order Chinese.
Like a black bean chicken of some sort.
Yes.
Yes.
And Newman loves Chinese.
Newman
Oh, my
loves
gosh.
Chinese.
There's nothing
yes.
like Newman. Yes, David, we're watching.
Yes.
There's nothing like Newman and Chinese food,
Yes,
is there?
that's correct.
It's like a tandem thing.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing about Newman that you both love is New Year's Day.
Oh,
Only
and
one channel on.
that's
Only
correct.
one channel on.
Only
Yes.
Sci-Fi Channel.
Yes.
And only Twilight
That
Zone.
would be
Twilight
it.
Zone. That's correct.
That would be
yes.
correct.
Yes.
Yeah. Black and white, laying
Yeah.
on the couch, watching the Twilight Zone.
I watch. I mean, I don't sit and watch it like he does, but I know a lot of the episodes, and I do watch some of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's your favorite thing to cook, Jeanene?
I'll tell you my most satisfying, making bread and making soup.
And Holly?
About that one too. I like to cook in general. I love to cook. So I cook
Yeah.
a lot. I'll try anything. I'm good at it, and I learned from one of the best cooks. So I anything. I cook anything.
This is an easy one for you.
Yeah.
You're walking into Mom's house. What are you thinking? Oh, I hope she has this for us for dinner tonight. Back from all your years of living there. What did she make the best?
Well, you made that lasagna recently. That was outstanding. So.
Well, how about that stew thing that
Well,
I
I
used
did like your oven stew.
Oven
Yes,
stew.
Oven stew, I guess. Yeah.
And then, before we finish, you walk into Mally's, Jeanene, in Lakewood, with the wonderful counter. What do you order?
There's only one thing I ever order, and that is a hot fudge sundae. Whipped cream, please, but no nuts on it at
No
all.
nuts.
No nuts.
And Holly?
Okay, so I thought about this. It was easy. So it won't be Mally's in Lakewood, unfortunately. It will be
Oh.
Mally's in North Olmsted. And hopefully, I'm walking in on my birthday, and it says Happy Birthday, Holly on their marquee. And I'm sitting in the carousel at the Mally's in North Olmsted.
Eating a-
Tin Roof Sundae.
Well, you can tell from our discussion tonight that these are two not just lovely women, two highly intelligent women who understand their role in today's world, their role in today's society. How do you find passion? You ask the Neumann or the Kress family what passion means, and this is what you get. And the other thing that's amazing about you two that I've known, but I've learned it more tonight, is that neither of you are done.
Oh,
You're not done, are you?
no.
No.
I say to my kids all the time, they're 14 and 16. I say all the time, I said, what do you think I should do when I grow up? And they look at you like, Mom, you're grown up. I said, so you think?
Well,
And same
and
thing for you, Jeanene.
And I always say to kids, don't peak too early. You know, a lot of people peak in their 20s, or high school was the best thing they ever did. I always say I'm still peaking. So
Wow.
I think that it is, at every age, we have something to offer. And I think the challenge is finding out what it is for you and then doing it. I'm always honored to be a part of it. And Peter, thank you so much for inviting me.
thank you. This was
has
super
just
fun.
been great and fun.
I could talk about government all night.
So we have one question. The question is,
One viewer would like to know how many on your boards are women, because just a generation ago, only men would be on boards.
Well,
There are 2 women on the board and 1 man, and I've served on all female boards.
and at the school board, there's 4 women and 1 man.
there you go. Well, again, I hope everybody enjoyed tonight. It's been an extraordinary event. We know
Well, thank
David
you very
Newman was
much.
watching, and we took care of all David's questions, and we know my father was watching. He'll be 97 in a few short weeks. Thank you all. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.